Hello.
Yes, yes, you
Yes.
are audible.
Uh, just give me uh, a chance to welcome you all for our fifth webinar series, and that is organized by Innovation Center. And the link of the Innovation Center, probably most of you know, and those who don't know, Abhishek ji will post in the message section, so you can kindly visit the link. And in our fifth webinar series, today, Dr. Deveshmita, she is she has done PhD from ISC Bangalore and currently research scientist at the University of Tokyo. She will talk about the energy storage devices, and her topic is a peek into energy storage solution. So Deveshmita, now floors is yours.
Thank you, Vikasji. So, if I'm audible to anyone, I can start.
Yes,
You need
yes,
to
you are
speak a
audible.
little loud.
Yes, you are audible.
Okay. So here I'm with energy storage solutions, specifically on batteries. Starting with, I have prepared the seminar for a more general point of view, so that everybody could understand the research. And hello, hello, hello.
Yes, yes. Devasmita ji, we can hear you. Abhishek ji, could you please mute everyone except Devasmita, including me also?
Okay. So yeah, I was talking about energy storage solutions specifically. And to start with, here is a green world perspective of future energy solutions. So right now we are actually living in a black world where there was pollutions, there is lack of energy storage and power, uninterrupted power supplies that led to no hello.
Yes, Devasmita
Yes,
ji, we can.
yes, you continue.
Mhm. Yeah, so we are living in this black world where there's pollution, there is pollution from the industries, car, and uninterrupted power supplies, which makes the energy as the top-notch global issues. In that scene, coming from this black world, from the CO2 emissions to a green world where we can actually control the energy crisis from the pollution A and also from the uninterrupted power supply, we need a solution such as a green storage where we can generate electricity from the renewable sources, and for that we need to store them conveniently and then we supply. So these are the three GSS track where we can actually conveniently do the things. For that reason, here is a diagram where it shows how it can be done. So let's say renewables like wind or solar, it is all day we can actually get the power from there, and then from the solar panel, and we can invert it and store in a battery, and when in the night time there is no sun, we can then take it back and use for our usages. And these are the grid. When excessive power we generate, we can store them in the grid storage. So behind all these things, the most important part is the batteries. And this is the timeline of the battery development. It started from 1800s, the Daniel cell, and now it is we are towards the lithium-ion batteries. And this last year, 2019, celebrated the Nobel Prize in the battery development, the lithium-ion batteries. So coming from Daniel cell to the lithium-ion battery, we have come a long way. So this is the first Daniel cell, and now we are in the 4G connected uh, or 5G connected mobile phones. And these are the portable revolution which you can see. And also there is this electric vehicle. So the large scale application where it started here, and now we are going for Boeing and the Tesla cars. So this revolution came at a lot of research, and this research started in this 70s and 80s, where Whittingham started with lithium titanium disulfide, a layered material, where he conveniently inserted lithium forth and back to get this new rechargeable system, which could later on got commercialized, and now every pocket has this thing. And later on, improvisation by Goodenough, and also fellow scientists like Delmas and all, now they are lithium cobalt oxide, the new generation material, and also now the sodium cobalt oxide, the other one in the list, where sodium ion battery is also coming into play because of the earth abundance. So whole of this thing started with this convenient and rigorous research. So before going deep into these things, let's revisit some of the battery terms. The battery was coming from this old French word, which is called action of beating. Battery, action of beating, related to a group of cannon in the battle. In this endeavor to find energy storage devices, this battery actually represented a stack of electrochemical cells connected together. Later on, this the electrochemical cells which were connected together were represented as the term battery. And this essentially consists of two electrodes. They are isolated by a separator who is soaked in the electrolyte to promote the movement of ions, not the electrons, only the ions. So this was the basic principle of the batteries, and that led to different type of batteries: lithium ion battery, lead acid battery, zinc carbon battery, nickel metal hydride battery, lithium primary, nickel cadmium, and some other type of batteries. Also there are primary system and the secondary system. Primary system is something we can use it once and then throw, whereas the secondary are rechargeable. We can recharge it and use it for a number of times depending on the cycle life of the battery. So these were the invention, all the invention, and now these are the revenue contribution from this different battery chemistries. However, you can see that 37%, it is the source uh, in 2009. So from this data, we can see that 37% of the total revenue is the lithium ion system. And as we go forth, we will come across various words like specific energy, specific capacity, nominal voltage, and energy density. So as I mentioned, 2019 celebrated the Nobel Prize for the battery development. And how does it started? So it started with these three scientists. So just briefly, I mentioned there was a titanium disulfide material, which was a layered material. And this is lithium. Lithium is the lightest of metal which can be in the solid form and which can be taken back and forth in the system. And they use this principle, the redox intercalation chemistry, to insert lithium and take out lithium during charge and discharge process to get this rechargeable secondary ion batteries. So and then the part of this thing was like they later on started with sodium and potassium. Now they are going for magnesium aluminum system for more than one electron redox reaction. So however, starting with this man Whittingham started in 1970s the TiS2 system. However, there were dendrite formation, like as charge discharge continue on the anode part, there were dendrite formation, which led to severe capacity fading, and also led to performance deterioration by heating up the system and later on breakdown. Then came Whittingham. This man gave the idea of lithium cobalt oxide, which is more stable form, and that could actually host the lithium in the in more space. It could provide more space than titanium disulfide. And since lithium cobalt oxide has lithium already present in the system, that gave a solid framework for lithium to intercalate and deintercalate. So this how the convenience started with a rechargeable system. However, later on the anode part, this man Akira Wasino from Japan, he changed the thing to petroleum coke, where they have it's being a light material rather than the lithium metal, which led to dendrite formation and breakdown of the system. He led to this graphite and petroleum coke, where the system is light, anode is light, and conveniently store the lithium in the anode part. So these two men changed the cathode part and he changed the anode part. They improvised on each other's work to give us the system which are the state of art lithium ion rechargeable batteries. So as I mentioned just before, how does this work? So battery in operation, this is like this. When we are charging it, let's say I have a sodium transition metal oxide system. So when I charge it, the sodium or if I take a lithium system corresponding little with lithium, sodium or lithium during charge goes from the cathode side to the anode side. These are layered materials. So they conveniently store here during charging. And these are the reaction which happens here. So let's say my cathode is sodium cobalt oxide. So I give some sodium. So let's say X sodium out. So it becomes Na1 minus X CO2 X Na, which Na comes out here, and some electron. Electron goes in the outer circuit, and ions goes in through the electrolyte. And similarly, in the anodic half reaction, this sodium comes to this hard carbon C6 and forms this XNA6. Similarly, when we go to the discharge profile, we take out our load and we see that this is what happens. Electron goes in the outer circuit, charge our system, and ions comes back to its original state and stays in the framework. And this is the reaction that happens. So conveniently, whatever X amount of sodium went out, now they are coming back to system and forming the initial compound, which is sodium cobalt oxide. And then in the anode side, the hard carbon or the graphite, whatever we have used, it gives back its sodium back. So these are the cathodic half reaction and anodic half reaction, which powers our battery. Charging this way and discharging this way. So the thing which we should take home here, this redox reaction, oxidation and reduction combined, which is called redox reaction. This powers the rechargeable battery, and that's how when we do the secondary charge, continuous charge discharge, these are sustained in the system, and we could use it. So and if we go by the techniques or the science behind it, we have a chemical potential of the cathode, which is mu cathode, and the chemical potential of the anode, which is mu anode. The voltage difference between these two is the nominal voltage divided by the Faraday constant and number of electrons taken part in these things. This is how a voltage of a cell is defined. So when we see a lithium polymer cell or lithium ion cell leveled as 3.6 volt, 3.8 volt, or some voltage, it is actually this uh, entity which they are defining. And now coming to the, and this is a very important thing, means like the driving range of a electronics. Let's say our portable electronics, we are using multiple apps with the same voltage operation. We see that some battery discharge faster, and some battery remains. So in that case, we see that this is a very important quantity. So that's why when they are inventing electric vehicle, they want more than a designated voltage, which is 4 volt these days, the second generation voltage they are saying. They are now interested in 5 volt operations. So this defines the voltage, nominal voltage. Now coming to the theoretical capacity, like how much it could store. So how much energy it could store, that is defined as the theoretical capacity, which is defined as the like number of electron. And this is a Faraday constant divided by the 3600 seconds, so which is come around 26800 divided by the molecular weight. So this is the theoretical capacity of the material, how much it could store. So let's say we take a bottle, and and the bottle cap is the specific uh, power density, like how conveniently it could give us the power. And the amount of water in the bottle is called the specific capacity, which like how much it can store. So I think the simple way I could define this that way. And the energy density of the some system which we see that polymer batteries, or let's say some uh, lithium ion batteries leveled as like 300 watt hour per hour or 1200 watt hour per hour. This is defined as the capacity and potential. So these two terms are very important in the batteries. Now how do we make a cell? So I just showed a making of a coin cell, like in the lab, how do we make it. So this is we first take whatever, like if I have to make a cathode, in that perspective I would say that I take a 70% or 80% of the active material, the my cathode. And to increase the conductivity, I add some conductive carbon, so some conductive material, and then add some slurry binder like PVDF or PTFE, and mix it thoroughly. That mixture like around 1 hour, I can do with the hand mixing with mortar and pestle, or I can use the ball milling process as well. It's just a mixing process of these three things. We need to have binder because we need to bind our whatever active material we are using. And then we add some slurry maker like NMP to it, to make a liquid slurry, so that we could coat it on some aluminum foil, or let's say stainless steel. And then we dry it. If the material is degrading, so we dry it in vacuum. If it is not, then we can go for a simple drying in the hot air oven. So this is how a the coated is material is coated. And after that, let's say I'm making this 2032 type of coin cell. Now everything I will have to pass on this glow box, where I have sodium and lithium or potassium. They are highly reacting. I can't operate them in outside because under the circumstance they come influence of water. They are highly reactive, and they can catch fire. To avoid those things, I have to use a glow box, where I the H2 or the moisture content is most important, which should be below 0.1 ppm. And now I have prepared a active material, coated active material, that would be acting as my working electrode. I add some is at working electrode, the positive electrode, and one is the negative electrode. So my working electrode, I have made the positive one, and the negative, if I am going for a half cell, I use lithium, or full cell, I go for a graphite or hard carbon coated, similar way coated thing. And these are the various part, gasket to give a tight crimping conductivity, and spring stainless steel spacer after that sodium, and then I use separator, because separator soaks the electrolyte for a longer time, and also give passage the ions inside back and forth, and then I just crimp it, and this cell is prepared. So this is how I make a coin cell. So I guess I would stop with this. This is how I try to touch all the basics.
It was really great to know, and all the participants who came to know how batteries are getting made. And I would like to also tell you that the Akira Sensei, he did
Yeah.
PhD from Osaka University. So like the
Yes.
same
Yes.
university where I graduated. So
Uh-huh.
now I will ask the participants if they have any question, they can ask one by one. You can unmute and then ask.
Yes.
Hello, sir.
Yes.
Hello.
Yes.
Hello.
Yes.
Hi, hi, hi,
Uh,
hi Pallavi.
yeah. Good afternoon, sir. That
Yes.
portion of the slide in which you had just said about making of a coin cell.
Yeah.
In the mixing part, that is, I think, the first step. You had told there's an option of mixing it with pestle and mortar, or
Yeah.
you can go for ball milling. So,
Yeah. Yeah.
is this thing optional as per the choice? Because as far as my perspective goes, the ball milling will give an aided advantage. What do you have to say about this?
Yeah. The ball milling will give an added advantage. That's
Mhm.
true. But my point was, if you get a uniform mixing with hand mixing as well, like many goes for hand mixing, so it is well accepted in the field that we go with mortar pestle mixing as well. And sometimes also ball milling has this mechanically induced phase transformation. However, material you have used, when you are milling it, sometimes what happens, like there are reports on this also, sometimes what happens, the material undergoes changes if we go for a rigorous milling. So let's say it is in alpha phase, material is in alpha phase. Now I milled it for 4 hours or 3 hours. Then what happens is, because ball milling parameter we cannot have influence on, like the heating it generates by the balls heating with each other, so that gives some added heat. So that's why there is new synthesis method called mechanical milling
Okay.
phage formation. So to avoid all those things, we actually check after milling that the material is same or not. So the safe choice would be going with the hand mixing thing. But
Mhm.
in principle, there is, if you go for a 15-20 minutes ball milling, that is advantageous. However, you go for a 30 minutes hand mixing, it is equivalent. The thing is, we should get a uniform mixing.
Plus, we need to also standardize the protocol where the thing or our material is not getting affected by the heat energy that is being produced. This is what you want
Yes,
to say?
yes,
Okay, ma'am.
yes,
And
yes,
the
yes.
other question is, ma'am,
Mm.
since the battery industries are releasing a lot of toxic elements also in the atmosphere, so what are the remediation process being taken out to combat those things?
So this cobalt is toxic. They say cobalt is toxic. Now they are going for cobalt free the lithium ion batteries. So first thing, they are changing the active material to some other type material, let's say iron. They're looking for iron stuff substitute. They're looking for vanadium substitutes. And regarding the lithium, so lithium is something they have a very standardized protocol to recycle it. Like lithium, when they use alcohol to dissolve it, it forms LiOH. So in that case, the LiOH is safer environment comparatively, and then it can be used as a chemical, recyclable chemicals. So they have a standard protocol for these things. Yeah, but the thing is, the market for cobalt is so high now, lithium cobalt oxide, and cobalt is highly toxic. So they are now going for cobalt free solutions.
Okay, okay. Thank you, ma'am. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you.
Yes. One question from Deepak Kaushik, type in chat box, and one question from Mujamin Siddiqui.
Okay, so let me go one by one. So there is question from Deepak Kaushik, and he has asked, what about more traditional generation techniques such as coal and nuclear, or hydrocarbon, uh, or based on plants? How could energy storage change things for these more tired and tube type generation? So Deepak Kaushik, is it okay? You can ask again this question. You can unmute yourself and then ask. Probably last part I did not understand. Probably Deepak Kaushik is not listening. So we will go for the next question. How do you determine the size of the anode and cathode in manufacturing of a coin cell?
So when we are going for coin cell manufacture, we have so let's say I have this thing, a gasket top part. So for that respective gas, case. This is a case. So in that case, I use a puncher. So let's say I have a 12 puncher. I have a 14 puncher, and I punch the or my active material with that puncher to get the appropriate size, whatever I need, respective to my requirements. I can punch it and use it.
Okay, so now again a question from Deepak Kaushik. Okay, how could a smart grid use energy storage at the best?
So the one of the way that smart grid operates is so here you can see. So when there is an excessive power, grid storage are something called large scale applications. So in the large scale thing, we have power assembly clusters where we can store the more energy. Like we have a capacity of storing in case of batteries, but limitation. But in grid, we don't have that limitation issues, and we can store it. So I guess that's the thing.
Okay, any other question? If not, then I have two questions, very small question. From lithium to magnesium or aluminum, people are shifting from 1 electron to 2 electron or 3 electron. So what will be the capacity, or like how much improvement do you expect?
So if it will be working, then I don't see voltage improvement, because lithium is in high in the electrochemical series for the voltage thing, but the capacity would have a very high advantage, because whatever one electrons storage would give, now 2 electron, it would be 2 times. Let's say I am getting around 200 milliampere hour. If I have magnesium in the system, so I would have 2. So as I showed you the formula here, so here, so if it is 2, so it will double the theoretical capacity. double the capacity. So in that case, the capacity would be very nicely improved.
And apart from lithium ion battery, probably there is also one called NaCl battery. So what's your take on that, if I'm not wrong?
So NaCl is more sort of electrolyte. So when you dissolve in water, so NaCl and KCl, they are kind of electrolyte and source of sodium. If I'm using aqueous battery, salt water batteries. So these are a different kind of chemistry. These are not used in let's say cathode or anode. They are mostly used in this aqueous battery or air batteries, where they are just a source of sodium, like, or in our traditional case, if NaPF6 I'm using for my electrolyte, the organic electrolyte. So now I substitute NaCl for that thing, and I did a aqueous battery out of that. So it could give us a sodium as source, and I don't think it would be very convenient because NaCl is very strong ionic compound. So we need some compound which can easily decompose and compose, like intercalate and de-intercalate. We need that formation energy very flexible in our range, and NaCl is a very high ionic compound. So it can be used as electrolyte, but not as the cathode. Or,
Okay, thank you, Devasmita. There's a question from Shashank Bhushan. He has asked which material you have used as a blinder and separator in the coin cell.
So there is glass fiber as separator. There is you can use the binder as PVDF, polyvinyl, I think Teflonized, PTFE also. So I don't remember the full form, but PVDF and PTFE.
Okay, and there's one question from Siddiqui. So why are lithium ion battery scientists always talking about global warming?
So that's very trivial. So we do not want CO2 emission. So we like fossil fuel gives this CO2 emission that leads to global warming. So we want to remove fossil fuel consumption, not remove. We want to decrease the fossil fuel consumption to CO2 emission, to decrease the global warming by implementing this storage system, which are based on renewables. We can generate renewable sources, energy from renewable sources, and we can store them in this electrochemical storage system, where we could thus omit the CO2 emission. And if we are using electric vehicle, where we are having battery inbuilt, so there is no CO2 coming out. So that's why we talk about global warming, that fossil fuels creates global warming, but we don't want this to happen. That's why we are using battery, and this is the reason, I guess.
Okay, and there is one question from Prince Kumar. He has asked about how can we improve the storage capacity of a battery. And probably I have similar question, like why we have a kind of charging limitation, rechargeable batteries, maybe 5,000 or something like. So can you answer both questions one by one?
So the limitation comes from, let's say, see this figure. So I have NXMOO2. Okay. So the amount of sodium in the material, let's say I have NaCOO2. I can at max give one sodium here, right? If I take out, so let's say X, I take out one, total I take out one, X is equal to one. So it becomes COO2, okay, cobalt oxide. So I have a limitation that I have only one sodium in my system compared to this. If I have two, and two can undergo reaction, then it would be I have two. So I wanted to say that when this happens, let's say CO, this is my starting material, NaCO2. Now, when I'm charging it, Na is coming out of the system, then CO becomes, this is in 2 plus state. If I'm taking one sodium out, so CO becomes CO3 plus, right?
Yes.
So maximum it go from 2 plus to 3 plus. If I have 3 plus to 4 plus, then it would be 2. So the limitation comes from the material itself. Like if it can store only one, if it can have only one sodium in the system, I cannot forcefully feed one sodium here, because all the oxidation should be, charge should be balanced. So the material to be in this case, it should not collapse. It should not collapse, in the sense this framework should not collapse. So that's why I don't have unlimited option of going for uh, capacity enhancement. To coming back to the second question, like how could we enhance the capacity? There are many methods. So we have theoretical capacity, that is maximum capacity we can have, but experimentally we normally don't get full theoretical capacity. To get like to come to the full theoretical capacity, or to enhance the theoretical capacity, there is coating thing, surface coating, because this electrochemistry is a surface reaction mostly happening in the surface. So what they use is, they use a coating, conductive coating, and they use this nano thing, nano fabrication, to give a uniform coating, where they also go for this porous architecture where lithium or sodium could be trapped. So there is a design architecture to tension. Yeah, there are many methods to enhance the capacity. They change the electrolyte, they add some additive in the electrolyte. So yeah, there are numerous methods you can enhance it. But the theoretical capacity is the upper limit. You cannot go beyond that. Experimentally, you can approach to the theoretical capacity.
So actually a series of questions is coming one by one. So like I may go for one or two, but I will request other people, like, you can give your question to Abhishek ji, and he will pass it to Devasmita ji, and then she can probably answer one by one. So just we will take one or two more interesting question, and then we will close this session. Is it okay?
Yeah,
Devasmita ji?
yeah.
So can we charge any battery by vibration, or can we charge it by other form of energy instead of electrical energy, like one from the sunlight?
So in principle, we can do. So I am talking about the batteries, which is electrochemical energy storage, where you give the like there is a conversion of electro energy to the chemical energy. So that's why it is called electrochemical thing. So so in principle, batteries are in terms with electrochemical storage. So electrical energy convert to the chemical energy, and chemical energy convert to the electrical energy. So these are synonymous here. Remaining like to going with the solar thing, yeah, we can actually in principle heat like put the panels and heat up it. From heat energy to there are some way we can go from heat energy to the chemical energy, and chemical energy to the heat. That is called thermal batteries. So they are different categories, and they are not very upscaled. And vibration would be, I guess, not enough to give that amount of energy for electron hopping. Yeah, I guess that would be
Okay,
sufficed.
okay. One question सिद्दीकी जी का लेना चाहेंगे, क्योंकि इसमें बहुत सारे स्टूडेंट नैनो टेक्नोलॉजी से है. व्हाट इज नैनो फ्लो सेल टेक्नोलॉजी?
Which one?
Okay, so Siddhika ji question is, what is nano flow cell technology? Question asked by Siddhiki ji.
Or is it like flow batteries, or there is a different thing called flow batteries, which is different from this rechargeable batteries. So they kind of use fluoride ions, and uh, their electrolyte is fixed. They keep two tanks of electrolyte, and unlike our cathode and anode, and then they suffice this electron transfer. I guess that would be a different field for me to answer that.
Okay, and last question, probably this was the last question, but in sodium ion batteries, I'm not. So here's the question: the successful implementation of sodium ion battery technology able to make India Atmanirbhar? That is the last question of this session.
Yeah, that there's a major thirst of research for sodium ion batteries. My PhD was also in sodium ion batteries. Now there are up in sodium ion batteries. And then the other part is sodium is much more cheaper than lithium, and earth abundant. We have salt, we can take Na from that. So this is very promising field, I could say, mm, for the sodium, because we don't have to depend for lithium on China or any other place, because China is a place where we export lithium from. So if we somehow move towards sodium, then things would be much atmanirbhar, whatever you say.
ओके
Okay.
ओके अश्वनी कांत जी लास्ट इनका ले लेते हैं क्योंकि हाथ उठाए हैं यस अनम्यूट करके पूछ सकते हैं
Yeah, good morning, ma'am.
Good morning.
Nice presentation by you.
Thank you.
The question is that there is two type of energy: low grade energy and high grade energy. We can
Mhm.
use high grade energy to charge a battery. Then, what is the limitation of a low grade energy to charge the cell?
Mm. So charging, like, the I guess there is this different categories of batteries we have, like from lead acid to lithium ion batteries. So lead acid operates around 2 volt. So this lead acid batteries, I guess, as you are saying, this low grade energies, this could be sufficient to uh, recharge the low voltage systems, as hope I'm making sense.
Ma'am, can you suggest me that how can understand the low grade energy is used to charge the cell? Means you can give me a suggestion that how can determine this up to that much of cell that much of energy is used in a cell for charging.
Charging is external, discharge is the system's inherent quality, but charging is something is you're putting externally. So uh, I don't think that would determine your system's performance.
Actually, ma'am, I am thinking that how to low grade energy, because when we use the low grade energy, then
Mhm.
we save lots of energy that we lost in environment. That's why
Mhm.
I'm asking you this question.
I guess I have no clue on these things.
Okay, thank you, ma'am.
Mhm.
Thank you, Dr. Devasmita. It was nice presentation. And if you have some suggestion, because there are many students from nanotechnology and material science, so if you
Mhm.
have comment like there are possibilities of doing such kind of research work in India, or the students can carry out. So do you have some take on that? So
I would
good.
say that go through the current research trends, like read the literature, like what are the current scenario of the this energy storage thing, and there are takes on nano influence in these batteries as well. Like they are working on MagSafe, graphenes for energy storage. So they could implement these materials for possible applications, and also they can go for some coatings to enhance the performance. So yeah. I hope.
Okay, so if you have any further question or you want some advice or whatever, you can please contact Abhishek ji, and you can ask your question, and Devishmita, Dr. Devishmita will try her best to answer it as soon as possible. So let's thanks Devishmita ji for coming here and giving a nice presentation to all of us.
Thank you very much for the invitation. Thank you. I'm glad.
Thank you.
Okay.
मीटिंग को एंड करते हैं, ठीक है?
Yes.
थैंक यू एवरीवन फॉर पार्टिसिपेटिंग.
Thank you, everyone.
Thank you, sir.